G'day and welcome back to another episode of A Legal Studies Teacher Reads the News. Looking at an article from December 26 by David Swan in the Sydney Morning Herald. Mass breach of privacy, TikTok under fire for tracking users online. So this is an example of what I've talked about previously, which is looking for examples and articles in the media that cover multiple syllabus points and areas so that you can talk about them in your exam and you don't have to remember as much stuff, which is always good. Another thing it shows is that you're able to think in an outside the square kind of way. You're not just looking at the textbook and using those examples. You're showing that you're engaging with contemporary issues now and that you're actually thinking about how they apply to the law. Because that's a great thing about legal studies. It's contemporary. It's happening now. Let's have a look at this. David Swan, what does he say? Remember, the first paragraph is always basically the summary of the whole idea. Some of Australia's largest and best-known brands are being urged to remove a tracking tool from Chinese-owned social media giant TikTok. Amid revelations, it is harvesting Australians' data, including email addresses, mobile phone numbers, and browsing histories without their knowledge or consent, in a potential breach of the nation's privacy laws. Wow. Like straight away, you read that and go, that's huge. This is, why is no one else talking about this? Let's have a look see what's happening. TikTok's tracking tool, known as a pixel, is an invisible piece of code that tracks a user's web history and personal information, even if the user doesn't have a TikTok account. The pixel can then track a user across the internet and piece together their identity, including their email, phone number, and buying habits, even if they don't have TikTok on their phone. Isn't that worrying? Marketers often use tracking pixels for legitimate purposes, including retargeting campaigns, and deliver more relevant ads that follow users across websites. So, for example, you search up on Google, you search up furniture, and then you go to Facebook, boom, there's an ad for furniture. Or you research a mattress because you need a new mattress, and then you purchase it, and then you see mattress ads for the next 45 years, and it's frustrating. That's because of these pixels. Tech giants such as Meta, owner of Facebook, and Google have their own tracking pixels, but tests show the pixel from TikTok, owned by Beijing-based parent company ByteDance, doesn't wait for user consent and is more aggressive in how it scrapes the data that may be made available for sharing with other Chinese corporations and the Chinese government, because that's what you want from your data online. That's really what you're looking for, isn't it? The revelations have prompted calls for Australia's Information Commissioner to urgently launch an investigation and for websites to remove TikTok's tracking pixels. Okay, so there's an example, if we're thinking through, of what can be done. So, for example, here we are in consumer law. For me, this is the first thing that I think of, consumers, because these are people who are, they're online. So they're using these websites. They're going to, for example, the websites where the data is being seen. All right. So, Kmart, various other places, we're about to find out. Okay. And they're buying stuff. So they're consumers. So, we're thinking through the developing need for consumer protection here. The objectives of consumer law, consumer protection, the role of negligence. Is someone being negligent here by allowing this to happen? And certainly, marketing innovations, this falls under as well, doesn't it? And technology. Okay, so a whole bunch of stuff. Tracking the tracker. Tests run by this masthead, i.e. Sydney Morning Herald, found TikTok's pixel scrapes a user's email and phone number information across some of Australia's most visited websites, including Kmart, Sportsbet, and Beyond Blue, often taking the information even before a user has clicked I agree or I consent on an online form. The tests found the pixel sends that information back to TikTok servers, along with the user's location, the device they're using, and their actions on the page, including in some cases what they have added to their shopping cart. That's worrying. Sorry, that's a cockatoo in the background. The email addresses and phone numbers are hashed, meaning they aren't being stored in their original form, but are easily decrypted. A user might, for example, go online to buy a weight loss drug, make a bet on a cricket match, then search for mental health conditions. TikTok is told about all of it. National Mental Health Organisation Beyond Blue removed the TikTok pixel from its website after being alerted to the tracking issue. Quote, Beyond Blue takes privacy and security extremely seriously, and we apologise for any concern this has caused, said a spokeswoman for the organisation. Fair enough, good on them. When the agents Sydney Morning Herald alerted us to this issue, we immediately commenced a review of our privacy policy and removed the TikTok pixel from our website Our investigations are continuing as a priority. Like many health organisations, Beyond Blue uses tools such as pixels to help us deliver safe and relevant content to people online. So this is an example of probably more the role of the media for this one, because Sydney Morning Herald have alerted them to the issue and they have gone and taken it out themselves. Okay, so there's a good example of the effectiveness of non-legal measures in achieving justice for consumers who now go on Beyond Blue and don't have that pixel there. Sportsbet spokesman said we use advanced matching, etc., etc., etc. Kmart did not respond. The test by this masthead found that for Google and Meta's tracking pixels, email addresses and phone numbers were sent to Google and Meta only after a user had consented. According to TikTok's website, the tracking pixel can help you find new customers, optimize your campaigns, and measure ad performance, and it goes on. Okay, so we've got this kind of really helpful article here, and yeah, this is the bit I was looking for. This raises, so we're talking to Civic Data Director Chris Brinkworth here. This raises serious privacy concerns regarding the lack of transparency, misuse of personal information, and disregard for consent requirements under current regulations such as the Privacy Act of 1988. Civic Data's recommendation is that all Australian businesses consider removing the TikTok pixel and other integrations from their platforms if they cannot guarantee that the data usage matches the consent given by consumers. All right, and Civic Data's clients include Xero, Ticketek, Car Sales, RACV, and BlueScope. Senator James Patterson's called for an urgent probe by the government, in particular the Information Commissioner. It's a very serious and potentially useful unlawful mass breach of the privacy of TikTok users, former users, and non-users, he told the masthead. All right, so there's an example, and it continues looking at some of the connection to China, etc., etc. Don't have to go into that because I'll put a link in this thing so you go and read the article yourself. But just an example of what we can use. So what would you think through? You'd go, okay, well, here in the syllabus, what are the themes and challenges, and how do they relate here? So the role of the law in encouraging cooperation and resolving conflict. So we've got a conflict here of tracking of private data. What role does the law play in encouraging businesses to take responsibility for the data that they're collecting? All right, issues of compliance and non-compliance, certainly, with the Privacy Act of 1988. Laws relating to consumers are a reflection of changing values and ethical standards. So the idea of privacy, and is the Privacy Act actually broad enough to now, accurately reflect the changing values of Australians? Law reform. So the idea that, well, does this actually work? So, for example, if we flick over to here and we go to human rights, okay, Australian Human Rights Commission, a very quick summary of them complaining about the Privacy Act not actually being kind of keeping up with the times. So 1988, this act is the primary piece of legislation that protects the human right to privacy online. As technologies improve and become more integral in our lives, the act is no longer fit for purpose. So this is the Human Rights Commission in Australia calling for this act to actually be changed and updated. So that's law reform, most certainly. And then obviously the effectiveness of legal and non-legal responses, as we saw from the effectiveness of non-legal responses, and a call for more effective legal responses. Okay, and we've got a couple of dot points, a couple of contemporary issues that it covers. So really, that's straight away an issue where you should be going, okay, got it. I'm going to go online and find this article. I'll copy it right now so that I can put it in the description. Okay, you can then watch some short little related things about it, how we tested the pixel, have a look at some related articles about it, and start building up a picture of how could I use this in an exam. Okay, so what I do, I go to past HSC legal exams, and basically once you've done this once, you can have a folder on your computer that has all of them there. But you're basically just clicking on the paper, jumping down to consumers, and seeing if it relates. And obviously if you've got the last 10 years or so, you can find a couple of questions and go, oh, I could use it here. Okay, legal responses are more effective than non-legal responses in achieving justice. To what extent is this statement true in relation to consumers? Okay, you could certainly incorporate this into that point, couldn't you? especially talking about the idea of law reform taking a long time. And you could talk about non-legal responses, such as the Sydney Morning Herald, and they're achieving more justice in this example. But overall, if law reform happens, perhaps that will be more effective in forcing ByteDance to change their pixel. Evaluate the effectiveness of the law and encouraging cooperation to resolve. So certainly you could talk about that too. Okay, so here's an example, and then you write that down, have a look, come up with a couple of quotes, things here that you could do, and practice putting that into a paragraph. And that's an example. Once you're doing that with a couple of different issues, a couple of different examples, you're on the road to getting ready for your legal studies exams. All right, so please have a crack at that. I mean, the other thing that you could look at as well for this issue is it is a human right, isn't it? Privacy is a human right. So investigate a contemporary issue which illustrates the promotion and enforcement of human rights. Note this, it only says issues could include. So most teachers will pick one of these, but you don't have to. It just says investigate a contemporary human rights issue and evaluate the effectiveness. So you could talk about this in both questions in your exam. If you're doing your exam 2 years ago, what have we got? Explain how the recognition of one human right has developed over time. You could talk about that. Privacy. And how privacy used to be much more narrow in scope, and all of a sudden, due to the development of technology and due to the online use and how it's so spread, and that has changed. That one, not so much. Other times, there'll be questions that really play well into, and it'll say, because this is just a contemporary issue, it'll give just a broad kind of question, and you might get a 6 or a 7 marker on it. So hopefully that's an example of what you can do continually in legal studies, looking at the paper, finding an article, reading it and going, does this relate to the syllabus? Where does it relate to the syllabus? How could I use it in an exam? Thanks, guys. Catch you next time.